Guys, just want to introduce the next panel, or the first panel, I should say, of the day. So it's a big topic. Yeah, could AI ever evolve to the point where it becomes a threat to the human sales function? Well, I think we all know the answer to this, but I think where we're going to take this debate is to show how it's actually affecting or impacting industry at the moment, and what we can do as leaders to actually alleviate that and become more human. Yeah. So we've got Red here still. Thank you for stepping in. We've got Kat Thorne, the CEO of the Morning GameChanger.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kat. We've got Hector Forwood, the CEO of Comtura.
Good morning.
And we've got John Cassidy, the CEO of Cassidy Consult and Advisory.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, guys. All right, thank you for. I hear that Dr. Jim is having some technical problems, so hopefully he will be back for the next session. If he does arrive in the meantime, we'll bring him in. Yeah, but for the meantime, guys, great. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. Let's just quickly. I think everybody's got their different opinions. Yeah, so let's. I don't want to push my opinions on the audience, but we're here. The reason we're here is because we've got a nice big forum with different points of view. So let's everybody please answer this question for me. Could AI evolve to the point where it's a threat to the human sales function? Yeah, simple enough question. Yeah, but it is a challenge. Kat, please, you're a habitual specialist. Please tell us what's your opinion on that?
I think that I'm going to sort of sit a little bit in the middle, and I'll explain why. I think technology has been incredible for so many industries, and I think we can see some really, ways that we can save money and time and really make a lot of processes way more efficient with the advancement of AI and other technologies. So I'm all for progressive technology, and I'm a big fan of seeing where this goes. So yes, I think in some areas we will see AI growth even in sales, and we can see it already today. We can see all sorts of kind of bots and things going on, and people trying to grow their businesses and their audiences using these kind of tools. However, I'm a big people person, as like you, Leon, and I'm sure like the rest of the panel. And I think this is a golden opportunity to stand out. I think this is where humans, and I think Red, you were touching on it when I was listening backstage, that this is our golden moment to actually differentiate in a marketplace which is becoming very automated. And I'm going to give you a really good example of this, because I learned this when I was working in tech. So I had an amazing leader, and when we would be working on business proposals, you know what it's like. You get a really excited prospect, and then they go cold on you for a few weeks, or all of a sudden there's like a new decision maker, and it's going to take 2 months longer than originally planned. And she taught me some really incredible strategies, very simple things to keep those prospects engaged. Things like writing a handwritten note, old-fashioned as that sounds, getting a pen and paper and posting it in the post. That might seem in this like post-COVID world of ours like some crazy idea, but it works. And actually I'm doing it now in my own business, where I'm working with organizations across the globe. I make these small planners which are really useful, and I pop them in the post to my prospects or to my customers, and I just say, I'm really excited to work with you. And I think it's those small things that we can do as humans that feels very thoughtful, and it helps us stand out. And I can bet that every single other competitor that I'm potentially up against when I'm talking to a client is not doing this. So they may now, after I've shared this piece of gold, but that's to sort of kick off the debate, that I think we've got a competitive edge against robots and AI right now. And that's I think that is really about making those really human connections in ways that they will never be able to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. Hector.
I've probably got the most controversial opinion on this. So I think
AI builder.
Exactly. So I think you first have to look at the buyer journey and how that's progressed over a period of time. So Xerox back in the day used to be a lot of door-to-door selling, and they'd just walk into office blocks, put a printer on the table and say, all right, who's paying for this? Then it transitioned to cold email from kind of 2005 to 2010, then multi-touch all the way through to kind of pre-COVID. And now the buyer journey revolves a lot more around more and more ungated content and being able to get your hands on a product before you've even spoken to a salesperson. So it's much more of a marketing play. If you look at the growth and success of solutions like Walnut, for example, and the two things that will change over a period of time is the available data sets for an organization, and that will eventually train AI solutions to be able to replicate a sales process effectively, particularly simple transactive sales. When you start getting to enterprise, because there are so many different regions and nuances within those kinds of sales, then you will always need a salesperson. But if you are selling something that's a 3 value proposition, not overly complicated, I think that all of those will eventually be automated to a point. And a salesperson will almost just be there as I'd almost say more like a CS person in the future. And I think we'll see a huge drop off in maybe even 5 or 10 years. And some of these enterprise organizations also have AI platforms, like IBM has one that can calculate the relationships between individual employees and see how that person collaborates with other team members. And so when they get to a point where they can identify their own pain points using all this readily available data, I think that's when you're going to start seeing a salesperson's role dramatically shift from what it is today. And so, yeah, I'm on the Bandcamp of AI. I think I'm all for it.
No, that's why you're here, Hector.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, good morning. I think I'm rowing in very much in behind Hector. I think on what's given me that opinion, last year I was interim vice president of global sales for an AI technology business based out of the US and out of Spain. And prior to that, I consulted for a number of months for another AI machine learning business out in Boston. And I think the adoption where you can see that this is going to manifest into sales is how the customer service world has adopted the use of knowledge libraries, messenger, how chatbot, AI conversational intelligence is moving to a point where, to what Hector mentioned, I think if you look at the buyers and you look at today and 10 years ago, we have seen a complete 360-degree change in buyer behavior. The buyers today are more informed. They have more knowledge. Years ago, the vendor would go to the buyer and the buyer would be looking for the vendor to be informed, trending, what's going on. With the advent of third-party advisors, the big four, there is such a desire in the pre-sales activity for knowledge that at this stage, when you go to a potential customer, they have an idea of what you do, who your competitors are. They even, in some cases, have an idea of what price point you may be at. So for me, where the artificial intelligence, particularly conversational AI and transactional AI, is really impacting and having some very substantial benefits in the areas of enhancing customer engagement, customer service. So the desire that, for example, over the last 2 years, we have all consumed more digital data coming out of the pandemic. We've all learned to buy and do other areas. So we've now kind of uniformed out that this language and communication style is one that we're comfortable with. And I think when you start talking about areas that this can make a difference, I see that creeping in very substantially into the area of pre-sales, for example. The area of very specialized sales, where you need an extensive, one of the projects we worked on a year or so ago is where the knowledge library and a bot was set up to support the internal sales team. that it could tell the temperature and could give the specifications of plastic that you need to deploy in the desert or you need to deploy in the North Pole. And so it became an aid to the sales organization when they're talking to customers. To turn that the other way around, that it can help be part of the customer engagement, I think we're not that far away. I still agree with Kat, and I'm an advocate of that because I think we're all people. It won't close deals. And I think that what we have still seen today, that once you have gone through the process of the buyer journey and come out the other end, you still need that human interaction. You still need that experience on how to negotiate and how to be commercially aware and cut a good deal. That's a win for you and a win for the customer. But I think the desire to drive efficiency, which is where the artificial intelligence around conversational and transactional AI is really taking place. The desire no longer to work in call centers, the idea that you can have a bot environment that can have an engagement environment with a customer and then escalate to a live agent, and that agent can see the entire transaction of the conversation. And if so, the agent can then pass that back to the bot. Really, can you see that happening in a pre-sales, in a cold outbound reach environment? Absolutely. So I think that I don't think it's going to take over. And to Kat's point, I hope it doesn't. But I absolutely support Hector in, I think, the continued desire for being more informed, being more knowledgeable, being more selective about the fit for your organization. I think this technology is going to play more a part of that today.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for your opinion, Sean. And Red.
So I want to jump on Team Human really quick, but the way sales exists today is the reason like AI is at risk of taking over, because we have built sales over the last 40 years to be more automated, to be more robotic. When a customer says this, you say that. And the more that we've created these sales robots over and over who are just focused on the numbers, like how much outreach can you do, the more we are playing into the hand of AI, so to speak. So human beings can absolutely be better than AI. We don't have to worry if we change the way we sell. But since that's not likely, that if we're not willing to change, then John and Hector are 100% on point.
Yeah, no, and I agree with all of you. I think just as an example from my life, for the last 2 years, I've gone through a major change since the start of Corona. I was prior to this, I'd always, prior to Corona, like any other normal person, if I'm to do my outreach, put together a list of 1,000 people, type my sequences in, send my automated mails. I know I'm going to get my 3 to 5% conversion rate, and and play on the numbers, and then do that. But yeah, okay, AI can do this much better. So why am I competing in that space now? When I really found, my value, I always used to thought my thing about my skills, relationship building. But where I found my real value now is the closing. And I felt, okay, how am I doing this? And it's what I changed was, first of all, I started fishing in different areas where I could really, really add value. Yeah. So, and where other people are not, I'm not where I haven't got a lot of competition. So different countries. And obviously, in terms of the kind of prospects, why am I going for the big funded, the big companies? No, you go for the small little ones where nobody wants to work with them. We're the ones that are struggling, because that's where you're going to really add value. So that was the first thing that I changed. And then the second thing was that really, after I've delivered my pitch, after I've got the objections, actually stop and pause, and taking that pause to think, why did the customer not bite my arm off of that? I gave them the perfect deal. Why did they not bite my arm off of that? And it's a couple of things on a couple of deals I can remember just in the last couple of months where I did something which is just totally abnormal from what my normal, if I was training a salesperson to do what I would teach them and train them to do. I did something totally abnormal. I remember one guy, I was like, look, hey, buddy, don't worry. If I could go out there and give you a hug and just tell you everything's going to be okay, I would do that. You know what I mean? Like I would literally do that. I know you don't know me, just trust me. I got it. I'm gonna sort it. And he was dodging he was not responding to my calls or my emails for over a week. I sent that email, the contract came back signed literally within an hour. I was like, wow. Yeah. Wow.
I think that's
sorry,
that's a valid point, Leon, because the elements Kat's talking about, I think, are true at the end of the buying process. Because I think, to Red's point, we don't want Terminator 3 live coming to a sales floor or a living room near you soon. But I think it's inevitable in some shape or form. But I think where we have an opportunity to stand differently is at the back end of the buyer process, because I've seen a change, and maybe my colleagues here can echo this. You get a company today, two companies to get shortlisted, you've done your evaluation, your pricing is very similar. Who do you buy from? Once upon a time, there is there's an adage that people buy people, and that they will, if the products are identical or similar price, you'll go with somebody that you have a relationship with. That still rings true today, but I think there's now the added value that machines can't do to some extent is, what does your business stand for? So companies now are looking at ethical behavior of your organization. They're looking at your diversity and inclusion policy. They're looking at your integrity. What do your customers say? To Kat's point, great to have the endorsement and references. We're seeing more and more of that coming out in RFPs and RFIs. If you don't have a minimum, certainly in Germany, if you don't have a minimum of 5 referenceable customers in this space deploying the product that I'm about to talk to you about, I don't even want to talk to you. You're out of the RFP, you're out of the RFI. So I think the element of keeping your company real, keeping your company different, standing in line with things which support humanity around diversity, inclusion, equality, sustainability, the ethical stance that you have on whatever, that a bot's not going to replace that. A bot's not going to make that differential between your company and somebody else's. So even at the end of that buying journey, and you've signed and you get to the price is good and we're still there, some of those key pillars you can fall over with. The guys will say, I don't think this is a fit for us. I don't like your stance on this. I don't like what I'm seeing about your culture in your company. Glassdoor is becoming a very, very solid platform, which is giving employees power to really comment on the ethical and integrity of organizations today. And a lot of employees now are making choices about joining businesses on what other employees are saying on platforms like Glassdoor. So I think the human element of being real, having a good relationship, and standing for something I don't think in the short term, certainly a bot or AI is going to change that.
Can I fight against that really quick? Go for it, Hector.
Yeah, I was just about to say, so what it sounds like to me is they're evaluating based off, use the word human representation, but AI doesn't care about your gender, doesn't care about your race. And actually, I would say adding those sorts of layers adds in efficiency. That's why AI exists, right? Because we're by no means perfect. And especially in the kind of deals that you're talking about, again, using Germany as example, Germany's level of compliance, cybersecurity, everything else is the highest in the world. It is incredibly difficult to sell in there.
Yep.
But I would argue that if you had a AI-enabled solution that were able to operate at a enterprise level, they would probably much rather accept the outputs from those that bot rather than having to go. Imagine the inefficiency of having to go speak to 5 different customers. Why can't I just have all of that data presented to me?
I think. Sorry, go on.
I think. Sorry to cut you off, Leon. I think you're right, and I'll challenge it as well, because I think what I've seen, which I don't see AI replacing, is that final commercial discussion. We've all been in complicated contracts that you need legal people to look at. That you can get a bot today, program it legally to look at a legal document and take out the comparisons. But I think the essence of closing business, and Leon's just give a very perfect example there, the human element of helping closing that deal, I don't think is going to go away anytime soon. Yes, you can have compliance things and you can have that. But when you get down to closing the deal, understanding the commercial aspect of that, I see there's still an art in that, a human art in that, which I don't think a machine's going to pick up on sooner than later. But I agree. I mean, I'm in your camp, Hector. I think that this has got more gravitas than we realize sooner than later.
Sorry, Red, go on. You had a point. Go on.
So I love what you're saying from an emotional standpoint with we want to work with companies that are ethical, that have the right like diversity policy. But when I look at the marketplace, that's not the way the marketplace is heading. There's a reason when Walmart and Amazon have all the employee complaints that they do, and they're taking over 80% of all retail in the world. I'd love to be able to look and say like, oh, we want to work with people we like, but at the end of the day, where customers end up going in so many cases isn't towards relationship, it's towards competency, and that's where they wind up going. I also think that we should talk about the idea that we're worried about AI taking over the seller role, but isn't there also an opportunity for AI to take over the buyer role as well too? And at that point, the human element will be that much more difficult.
Yes, I think that's a really great point. Before we touch on that, because obviously I want to make sure that we keep this in line with the theme, and that's a whole new, AI
that's
as a buyer. There's a whole new different. I want to touch on just 2 points. I mean, I think here, I think first of all, talking about the German culture, and I think there's a very big myth about this German culture, because I've been selling successfully in Germany for 12 years. And yes, the Germans are very process driven. They're very structured and very organized. But you know what I've realized since I've come here? They are still very human. And I used to, like most people, think, the Germans, if we look at a scale of, whether someone's deal focused or whether they're relationship focused, I would also, when I first started, put Germans on they're very deal focused. Yes, Germans buy the process. They believe if they've got a very structured process, it doesn't matter. The solution will work because the processes and the methodology is just as strong as the actual benefits. But I can tell you this for now, that Germans are very relationship focused as well. They are very relationship focused. It just takes 2 or 3, meetings to break through that kind of defensive barrier. Once you break through to that defensive barrier, they're a friend for life, and they want that relationship to do business with. I found that one of the main successes why I am successful in Germany is because my sales team is my customers. I have a big team, and my team are all marketers, but I'm the only sales guy, but I still get lots of leads and people coming to me and, tripping over. I'll get more business offered to me than I can take on. Why? Because my customers refer me to other customers. And that's the relationship piece there.
Can I just make a point as well? I think, just picking up on what Hector said, I think it's also important to put some context behind what industries and what types of business and selling we're talking about, because I can think of so many things that I've purchased or that I've kind of engaged with, which didn't require a human. And I think, when we look at selling on scale globally, their AI is going to help, and it already is, isn't it? So I think, and I agree with you, John, and I hadn't really thought about that, about the customer service side. I think about all the, like I've built my own website, so starting my own business and using the chat, or not the chat function, but because you can see a human, loosely said, but you can get some human interaction there. But actually that whole bank of information that's already there, so you can actually find your answer really quickly and carry on with what you're doing. That's incredibly helpful for a user, just to be able to move forward and use the product that you're paying for, or to make a decision on buying a product. But I think I agree with Red as well about the human side of things. And I think we're going to see a really interesting trend. Now we see, so you know, before we had mobile phones, I remember being 17. This is 23 years ago, so it's admitting I'm 40. I remember getting a mobile phone for the first time and how exciting that was. And then the changes that we've seen in cell phones, being those small little things, the Nokias, the bricks, to kind of smartphones and watches, and the progression of that technology. And now we see in a mass, because I work in well-being, of course. I work with teaching positive habits to corporates all around the globe. And what we see now is a massive trend in people trying to manage the technology usage and their habits around technology, because it's actually, for many people, becoming very damaging to their mental health. And I think one interesting thing is we see, for example, like retreats and things now where there's no Wi-Fi and there's no cell phones allowed. And these are on the increase, and people are demanding places and actively seeking places where they can escape the digital world. And so I think as much as it's aiding us in business, as business owners and as consumers and customers, but I think there is also, people are looking for organizations and products where there's a human. Because it's getting so frustrating now. You can't talk to your energy supplier. You know, when you book, like I had an issue with Eurostar recently. I waited like 37 minutes to talk to a human being, but and a lot of organizations now are trying to leave that as a last resort. Yeah. So, you know, from a cost saving and efficiency point of view, I get it. But actually, talking to a human is now becoming such a rarity that actually I think we're going to see a surge, and I think we are already seeing a surge of consumers and businesses who are going, guess what? If you buy us, you get a human, because this is really unusual now. So it's a very interesting shift.
Okay, so let's. Then I think now you've really come into Susie's point here. Do people want to speak to a human? I think that depending on the industry you're speaking about. Well, you know, I know. Say for things like banking, when I go into my banking app, it says you can call the call center or you can speak to an AI chatbot. I always go to the AI chatbot because I know that the things that I'm looking for, the AI chatbot can do it very, very simply. And why am I going to wait, like Kat said, 37 minutes just to have a human who's going to, you know, pretty much, okay, you might have some empathy, we might have a nice relationship, we might have a little laugh and stuff. But at the end of the day, I just want to get the job done, and the AI bot can do this very, very well.
And I think we worked last year on a major project in South America where WhatsApp is absolutely taking, you know, it's probably growing quicker than it is, and the usage-wise in certain other markets. And one of the projects we worked on was it's interesting you just mentioned, Kat, one of the power utility players has made a decision that all of their communication with their customers is going to be via WhatsApp. And they have now put AI conversational bots in their WhatsApp environment. And you can go on, check your bill, you can order new services, you can do literally everything to do with the energy of your power, your property or your home on WhatsApp without ever having to speak. And I think the challenge is we ourselves as humans are beginning to live in a very demand orientated, and the question that Susie raises is true. The generation of children today get a movie now, get food now, get a picture now. Holding on for I don't think the generation below us, the generations that are coming up, is interested in holding on for 37 minutes to talk to anybody. And I think you've got to I think that culturally is a very big change. That also is a challenge. And then you've also got the practicalities of, as I mentioned earlier, about call center behavior, where you know, a bot works 367, 24/7, 365. Doesn't have holidays, doesn't come in late, don't phone in sick. If it's got access to a knowledge library, it's got probably more comprehensive information at a quicker time. And I think one thing I've said, you know, just generically over the last number of years, maybe you guys agree, I think we are poor. We are time poor. Everybody's, doing okay and doing well in their businesses. I think that if there was 48 hours in a working day, we still wouldn't have enough time to get everything done. And time is a commodity that where AI has moved into making it quicker and easier. And I think the success of a lot of applications and a lot of things that we use in our daily life, to Kat's point, is that it's easy, it's quick, and to your point, Leon, I get it done. And actually, you know what, I'm paying this. I don't want to speak to anybody. It's a low transaction. And Hector's point earlier, I think that transactional selling, organization themselves are looking at the cost of a very experienced, high-performing sales guy with an OT package of several $100,000, and we have transactional small value items. I don't want a salesperson spending any time on that, and I want an AI environment to act as a sales engine. And I see a lot of traction around that sort of small value commodity type selling that can get replaced very quickly.
And the funny thing was, I was asked to do a project the other day, a process optimization project, and it was for a bank, it's an insurance company selling car insurance, and they had this big call center. And they were like, big call center just doing car insurance. And I said to them, really? Me personally, you've got a call center of 200 odd people here. Calculate how much it is. You can put a bot. I said I could knock this process down into 4 stages. They had like a 22 stage processes thing. If it goes here, it goes to this department. I'm like, mate, 4 stages. And I said, you get a lead gen tool there. You're going to get this tool here. And it was like 4 different tools. And I said, I've got these 4 tools in my partner network. I could put you to 4 people, and you could cut your cost down by nothing. I said, but it's harsh because that's 200 jobs out the window, but ultimately those 200 jobs out the window, and you're going to increase your turnover, and
your customer satisfaction
5,000%. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I think you're going to increase customer satisfaction. And I think the other thing, the other thing I think that we also, I think, are looking at the moment, I think those type of roles, there's not the interest to go into that type of working environment today. I think if you sat down with a bunch of school leavers today and said, do you want to go and work in a call center? I think it's not going to be something that they're going to go, I'm striving to work in the Vodafone call center in Newbury. And I think, organizations are understanding that they are struggling to attract people to come in to work in that type of environment. So you're also seeing a cultural thing that more and more people are making career choices that are technology driven. And things like, even, we're at risk at some of the manual, that good plasterer, good electrician, good carpenter, these skills are becoming, I won't say they're becoming extinct, but they're becoming less rare than they were, particularly if you're trying to find a good carpenter. And so you also look at how businesses having to adopt, if they're running a call center, if they're running the support environments with humans, and they are struggling to recruit people, they're struggling to keep people motivated, because for some time, no disrespect to people in call centers, they can be challenging to keep them stimulated, to keep them turned, and we've seen environments where people have said, when the agent isn't busy, why don't we flip them into a pre-sales environment and get them doing outbounding? If there's no inbound calls, well, we're still paying for them. Why can't we upskill them? Why can't they do some warm outreach to our customers and get a better value turn on that one individual, rather than there's nobody calling, nobody emailing. I'm sitting here all morning and I've done nothing except drink coffee.
I think this brings back to another point that I was thinking about talking about before. Sales as customer services. What are we thinking about this, guys? Because when I trained, and we're all in roughly the same generation. Hector, you're a young buck, but the rest of us, he looks a lot older than he is. I saw his birthday the other day. I was like, what? Yeah, but anyway, no, but sales as customer services. I think, especially Kat and John, we came from the generation when we learned sales, it was sales as a 360 role. We learned marketing, sales, customer services, and we called that, as far as we were concerned, that was sales. So I am just as, when people come to me and they say, oh yeah, I'm looking at sales, and they said, oh no, but I'm looking for a marketer. I'm like, well, yeah, I do that. When I talk sales, I talk pre-sales, sales, after sales. That's sales, Now it's changed, different terms. What do we think about sales as a customer service, or sales, or AI, tech, sales, customer services, because I think that's a really strong point where we are, okay, let me leave it there. What do you guys think about that? Tech as a customer services, can it improve? Is there a gap there?
My experience is that is already enhanced. The speed of which you can have a knowledge library or you can have a search environment that improves. And I think what I saw in my experience working last year, the desire for organizations to self-fulfill. You have this expression of fulfillment or self-service, sorry, get the word right, self-service, where, to Kat's point earlier, you go to a website or a portal and you're expecting that the information is going to be comprehensive. The days of very simple FAQs, people are moving 2-3 generations above that, where they want to have more comprehensive information that the customers can access, particularly when we deal and work with pharmaceutical and medical companies, so that they can supply information at the end of a fingertip. If your child is taking this medicine and there's something, you've got questions, there's a comprehensive knowledge library behind that. That gives a much better service experience.
Sorry, John. Sorry. I think you misunderstood. I'm talking about sales as a customer services. Sales. So we basically, going back to your point there, what you just mentioned before, where we are training our customer services agents that they're not just simply resolving a customer's issue and challenge. That the customers coming in and they actually have got the knowledge and skills to resolve that issue and then upsell and sell to these guys. I mean, we talked at the beginning about sales transitioning, the role of sales transitioning. And I'm trying to work out, is this a gap here potentially in the market where we go back a step and we actually go back, to this 360 role where you've got one person, they can do the pre-sales, they can do the closing, they can do the customer services. You've got the supporting technology there, but supporting them. But they can still come in and do everything. Is there a gap then?
I think you'd probably find that the expression, are they a hunter or a farmer? If you're applying for a customer services role, chances are you're probably not going to have the assets required to be a salesperson, which is the list is pretty long, but let's say inquisitive, but have the ability to be confident and challenge someone. Typically when someone works in customer success, I would say they're customer service specifically, I would say that they're much more considerate, accommodating, but they don't have the drive to push someone to disagree with them and say, like, no, actually this is where I believe we can help you improve. Obviously that's a very distilled down version of maybe roles. Yeah.
I'm gonna show you my CV afterwards.
On its own, but I'll just keep it at a high level for now.
I started in customer services, 5 years experience customer services. So.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think that transition is very difficult for someone to make, and actually I think that if you started giving those people who worked in customer service the opportunity to do sales, I'm sure you'll get maybe 10% might be really good at it, but I think there's going to be a huge waste of talent, or firstly stick to what you're good at, and secondly, a lot of them probably won't want to do that. I mean, I know I'm basically a glorified SDR now. It's a C in my title, but my company's tiny and no one's heard of us. So, I'm back cold calling. And it is tough. It is so much harder than it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you ask that question, if you can reassign that time, that wasted time period where someone was doing customer service and they're free to do it, I think that you could get them doing low value tasks or other things in the business, rather than trying to force something that they're not comfortable doing or they're not going to do, because you could be just leaving revenue on the table or really damaging your pipeline by asking someone who's not good at it to do it.
Kat, I want to bring you in here, please. Kat, please, what is your opinion on this? Because I'm thinking that when I break down sales, and forget the skills. Let's look at the core the core, personality traits. We're talking about customer centrics. We're talking about willing to help people, which are the same attributes a customer services person needs as a salesperson. I mean, we just break those things down. Relationship building, those are the core things. The only difference is the layer of skills that you put on top of it. Right,
Yeah.
but the core personality traits is the same. What do you think, Kat? You're the people person here.
So I was never a salesperson. I never did any sales training. I never considered myself a salesperson. In fact, I remember once. So I started life as a teacher, and then I went into working in tech. And in the beginning of my career, I was teaching teachers how to use tech. So that's kind of how my career started. And I think the company I was working for realized really quickly that we were really good salespeople because we had been teachers. So because we had been in the classroom, we had that empathy for those teachers, those schools, those massive districts in the US that were trying to implement a change management program across 50 different schools, school districts or whatever. And so I remember this conversation with the CEO, and he said to me, how much have you sold this month? And I said, well, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a trainer. You might have got me confused with my colleague over there. And he said, no, you're a salesperson. Every single person in this company is in sales. And I think that was like a bit of a crash course in what selling is. And also I think over the years, and even now, and sometimes I now also coach people, I do some consulting on this, and I say to people, just forget the words. Sometimes we get so attached to the connotations of words. If you forget the word sales, selling, closing, targets, all this stuff, just put all that to one side and let's just help people. Let's just understand what people are struggling with, and let's create solutions and take people on a journey. And so I think you just have to be invested in that concept of helping people, and the confidence just comes. I'm actually now not a bad salesperson because I don't look at it like that anymore. Because and if people don't want to be helped, then that's okay. That's okay.
Red. No, thank you very much for that, Red. I'm glad. I knew you'd bring you in. We did help steer this conversation. Go on, Red.
So I absolutely love everything that Kate and Hector are saying, and what we need to address first is how sales is looked at and how sales is trained. So many SDRs are trained in the wrong style of sales still. They're trained in this Glenn Ross, always be closing bullshit. And it's leading people to think sales is something that it isn't. So when Hector is saying they don't want to do sales, it's because the sales that we're training in most SDR roles is completely unhuman in so many ways. It's not emotional, it's not intelligent, it's about manipulation and bulldozing. It's about, well, do you like water? Do you like clean water? Well, here's my filtration system. It's $39.95. Make sure you buy 6. Do you want delivery Tuesday or Wednesday?
And I think I'm glad that these having this nice mixer panel, because for me, and I think one of the things that I preach a lot, sales is about servitude. If you have this mindset about just serving and helping your customers, it doesn't matter what it is. Think about what your customers. I don't even like the whole problem selling. I hate that, and problem selling and product selling. I think that is total crap. But if you talk about I remember now one of the things I do just as a background. When I have this discovery call, that first we do half an hour call with a customer, I spend half an hour just getting to know the prospect. I don't talk about my solution. I don't talk about my product. I don't talk about any of that, because we can do that via email. That's very easy. Back and forth with that email. I don't need to spend that. I know that with that window of time now where I have that amount of face-to-face time I have with my customer is now reduced from the whole sales cycle to maybe that one half an hour call at the beginning, and I'm never going to see that prospect again. So at that point, what is the most important thing? Build a relationship. Find out.
Yeah, but I think the only caveat though, which I'm going to come back to, sort of, which goes back onto Hector's sort of side of things, is just that it completely depends what kind of industry, what kind of sales we're talking about. Because
we're
I
not
think
talking
what
transactional sales, but we're talking
yeah,
B2B.
yeah.
We're talking this is a B2B. We're not because we're not talking B2C. But B2B. Well, high value B2B. We're not high value, but B2B selling. But business to business selling. So I think B2C. I think everybody agrees here. B2C selling. Yeah, look. I mean, this is send it out to. Do you know what I mean? I would encourage you, get it out to AI, get it out to tech. Transactional selling. Look, that's already there. But we're talking about B2B selling. Yeah. And I'm not even talking about, it doesn't necessarily have to be high value enterprise, a whole CRM ERP system. No, I mean, we can talk about a solution that can have an average order value of 10 grand a year. It's still, when it comes to B2B, I think there's something in there that requires that emotional intelligence. And I think that cannot really be replaced. Guys, please.
And the trickiest thing is so much of the sales that we've been training for the last 40 years plus is not emotionally intelligent. It's very transactional. It's very bulldoze your way through. And that's where AI is going to beat us, is by not having that emotional intelligence, or us trying to be robots. We have to separate the two. If we keep training our salespeople to be robotic, to be customer says this, you say that, that's where we're going to lose on the B2B world too.
Yeah, but I also think some of the B2B, we've all touched on it, I think so, is going to be the value and the transaction. Hector talked about this in his opening piece. I think that there are low value items where organizations will deploy AI technology to do everything you said, Leon. They'll do the pre-sales, they'll close the deal, and they can act as a customer service. It's just a matter of what knowledge library or knowledge source they tip into to do that. And again, you look at the way that organizations, and again, humans running most organizations, are looking at the way that they're deploying their people. To your point, Red, it's very challenging to get high quality SDRs, BDRs today. It's a great, I've always said it's a great segue for people who haven't got a technology degree to get into a tech company doing that. And it's a really difficult, as Hector's saying, really hard, challenging grind to do that, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. But certainly businesses are looking for efficiency. They're looking for scale. They're looking for a global window where they, you can have this multilingual as well. So it opens other markets for me where I don't have to skill up. My knowledge library can do it in French. You can do it in Spanish. They can do it in German. And so some of those benefits will be a trade-off from a cost perspective. And again, I don't think we're all agreeing the same thing. I think relationships build relationships, and people buy people. And I think, thank God, that will continue. But I think there are certain areas of the market, we all, in the pandemic, Amazon boomed because people just got so comfortable with buying on Amazon. And I think for most people, 99.9% of that interaction never spoke to anybody. So I think it depends on the business.
Okay, we've got 15 minutes left. Yeah, so let's now summarize and put together some takeaways for our businesses. So we've got a load of leaders here on the listen to the show, but we've also got probably some very nervous SDRs. You know what I mean? And and we probably not helped them a bit. So let's 15 minutes. Let's summarize. I want us to understand a couple of things. So how can we, how can we as salespeople, differentiate ourselves and really ensure that we are adding value to our customers, one, and two, how can we as leaders, ensure that, we are our business as efficient as possible, but also, where know where to deploy the sales and where to keep the sales, I think you guys understand what I'm trying to say, really. Where do we have sales? Where do we have technology? And what do we need to do to make sure that they're the most efficient in those positions? Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied already.
I'm going to give, I think it'd be quite useful to give some practical things that people can walk away with. So I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm going to share two things. So one is what I talked about when I first came on this morning, which is add a human element to your sales process. So whether that's sending something in the good old-fashioned post, or sending something to their workplace, doing something that makes you stand out. Even I think there's quite a lot of digital activities you can do, for example, with LinkedIn. So that's my sort of second thing. So the first one is do something that surprise, the element of surprise, something they're not going to be expecting. That's really, really nice. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is LinkedIn. Build your brand on LinkedIn. And I'll give you an example. So I've been really getting into training lately. So training, I've been training my mind for 6 years now, very intensively, and I've started now training my body to kind of keep up with everything. And I posted a video slightly reluctantly of me lifting 2/3 of my body weight recently. This is like a big deal for me, going into quite a masculine gym, working with a trainer, lifting weights. And I posted it slightly reluctantly on LinkedIn. And I got a client off of the back of that video, which was quite incredible. And the client said to me that they really liked that I was doing what I was selling. So, I talk about positive habits. That's what I help people to achieve, to live happier and healthier and higher performing lives, to get better balance. And so for me, it's important, I think, that I am true. And I don't really like the word authentic, but I'm genuine. I'm not somebody who says you should do this, but then I'm secretly doing something else. So I live and breathe what I talk about. And I also talk about my own personal journey of that, and how I also struggle with things. I struggle with thoughts and struggle with motivation, and all these things that I know that the teams I work with struggle with. So they're my two things. Do things that surprise people, and build your own brand on LinkedIn. For me, it's been LinkedIn. It might be another platform for you, but I think people, it sounds like a cliche, John, but people still do buy from people, and people we're curious, a curious species. We want to know what people are getting up to. We want to know more than, it used to just be, oh, these are our company updates. No, I want to see who's John. I want to see who those books are. What's your book you're reading at the moment, John, and share something about that. And I think that's really important. So they're my two takeaways.
That's really, 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 really great. I think one of the things on your SDR question, Leon, I think having outsourced and had my own and currently work with SDRs, I think one of the things that stands out for really, really good SDRs is how their interpersonal skills, going back to something Red was talking about in the previous session, how that they have some of the basic things that we are taking for granted. We're living in a time-challenged world where we're going from the next meeting to the next meeting. But people take time to ask, the SDR takes time to ask, is it a good time to talk to you? Do you have a few minutes to speak? They put a human element into the engagement strategy. They're polite. I always say you need to have an exit strategy. If you call somebody at the wrong time and they're angry, that's okay. Have a polite way of apologizing and getting out of that, and use your communication skills. And sometimes you don't put enough effort into the SDR BDR element around upskilling them on the soft skills, because they're trying to hit somebody at a moving time at any given time during the day and expect to get through to them having a conversation. But when they do, the people that I have seen who really excel at that and do very, very well are people who have developed, who have been coached and been mentored in their soft skills and in how to communicate properly, rather than instead of asking Leon, have you got a minute, they're already into the pitch. And if you tell them, if I'm telling you busy, you get two for the price of one, and it's kind of a nanosecond. I think the soft skill coaching and element and the development of communication is still a very, very key thing. And the people that do well in those type of roles in SDRs and BDRs, for me, are people who've got those skills really, really natural.
Definitely. And I would second that. For me, it's all about, for me, like having a relationship. When I have a phone call, it doesn't matter if I spend half an hour on a phone call. I want to have enjoyed that time. I had this call from this guy the other day, and it was just so great. We had a laugh, we had a joke, and I mean, yeah, we connected on LinkedIn, and I will remember that guy. I remember him. I'm not sure we go. I took a meeting from his boss, but I'm not sure it's going to lead to something. But I will remember that guy, because it was a really nice conversation.
I think the other thing, Leon, we're seeing, I'm seeing in our own, that storytelling is becoming an art in communication today. I've seen I've tried this with my own groups, to say to a customer, listen, Kat, do you want to sit through a 27-slide presentation on this, or actually will we have a conversation? And the number of people I've had to go, oh, thank God, I'm zoomed out. I don't want to see another PowerPoint presentation. Can we have a chat? And I've been coaching our own sales guys and people I work with about the art of storytelling and about having that personal interaction. Even though we want to get to the same results, which is we want to close the deal and do the business, forget about, do you want to see another 30 PowerPoint presentation? No. Can we have a chat for 10 minutes? Tell me a little bit about your company. Tell me a bit about you. And I'll see if I got something that we can work with together. And I see that whole genre of storytelling really resonating with top performing people.
Yeah, I mix it up when people are like, oh yeah, so if they ask me for my number, I'll be like, no, let's have an online call. If they ask me for an online call, I'll be like, no, just give me a phone call. Just give me this number, WhatsApp, give me a phone call. Yeah, but we like to do a presentation. No. Just give me a phone call. If you can't sell to me, if you can't, articulate your product in 2-3 sentences, mate, we're not going to do a business anyway. So, I just want to hear from Kat and Red before we close up. We've got 7 minutes. So not Kat and Red. Sorry, Hector and Red. Sorry. Sure.
So actionable items. The first thing that I would do is write down every process and item that you do in a day-to-day and figure out what you can automate. And you can also do that through VAs as well. I think you'd be surprised at how affordable having a VA is. For a virtual assistant, for those who don't know the acronym. The other is, when it comes to those sorts of relationships, especially at an SDR level, I think the thing that's often missed is bucketing everyone into the same Bandcamp and not doing your research, because the amount of automation which has gone too far the other direction, and AI hasn't caught up to a point where it's clever enough to do this, and so salesperson still is required, is come prepared to those conversations, because nothing pisses people off more than just using some generic rubbish. And I think that pre-sales and research piece for an SDRs is where you're going to start getting more success. If you know about my business and you know my problems I'm facing, firstly, you're going to be targeting better, so you're not going to be wasting as much as your time. Secondly, you're going to have a higher rate of conversations that ultimately lead to deals, which is what your organization cares about. And then finally, the other actionable point would be, when you are in those conversations, spend more time listening to what your prospects are saying rather than the talking. If you're continually providing, we can do this, and feature selling, I think that's agonizingly painful for anyone to listen to a 30-second regurgitated script. And I would say that is a nuance point of a bit like Red was preaching before we got on, that emotional selling piece. And with that, I'll close off and pass over to Red.
So for me,
sure.
Go on, Red. Go on.
Yeah. So for me, if I was an SDR in this environment, and when I'm training SDRs right now, the very first thing that you should be focused on if you want to avoid an AI takeover is get very, very good at naming and calling out emotions and having those difficult conversations. If you hear somebody who's frustrated with your pitch, stop completely and say, hey, I hear that you're frustrated. I hear that you're bored. I hear that you're whatever. What's going on? What am I doing wrong? And accept that responsibility. If you hear, and when you hear that from a client and actually name that emotion and call it out, it ingratiates you. That's something that AI can't do, is recognize that tone of voice. So be more human, be more comfortable calling out and talking about the emotions in a safe way. Don't just say, oh, you sound like you're really angry with me, but hey, you're frustrated. Something in this process, you're on slide 13 of 27 and you could just see their eyes rolling over and them like kind of reaching for their phone. Stop and ask, okay, you're bored. Why doesn't this pertain to you? What is it that I'm doing wrong? And adjust. Just have those that emotional intelligence and that willingness to jump in and actually have that conversation with them about how you would do things differently, how you can make them more comfortable.
Brilliant, thank you, Hector. I just want to go back to you quickly. I think you've been very quiet in this session. I just want to pick on you very quickly, please, for entertain me for 2 minutes. Basically, you are a Gen Y leader. You're a Gen Y leader, yeah? And you, as someone who's done businesses, you're very successful. What you do? I don't know you. I think there's this myth that Gen Z and Gen Y people, they don't want to be sold to. They do their research. If they want to buy something, they approach you, and it's something but more like, okay, open the door, present yourself, and just let them come to you. But you still have to take sales calls, right? Just tell us a bit about your world. We want to get some insights. You've got an actual live Gen Y leader here. Do you take sales calls? What encourages you to take those sales calls, and what differentiates the good ones from the bad ones? We've got literally 2 minutes, please.
So I've had to buy some software for my company, so I've had to take a number of sales calls. I think that the first thing is I always hear a salesperson out, because, you know, I did that role for 4 years, and so I have some fealty towards it, especially being an SDR for a year. And even when it's a totally unrelated product, I'll listen to their 15-second pitch. And if they continue trying selling, I'll just say, look, I'm just going to shut you off. I appreciate your pitch. You did a great job. I even offer a couple of pointers sometimes to say, like, these are things I would have done better, but this solution's not for us. If they, or like, we're just not in a buying position for this right now. And if they try objection handling and saying, no, you're not listening, look, I'm just not in a position where we'll be buying this. I think I might be this time frame and give them the time to reach back out. And it's usually in a year or two. Because, you know, some people are trying to sell me stuff like multi-currency tax calculation software for different regions, and I'd be like, I have one office in which is my bedroom. So yeah, no, I'm not going to be buying, you know, thousands of dollars of dollars or yen or whatever it may be. Yeah. Then the second thing is, when I'm on a product demonstration, I have sat through so many, and because I used to do a lot of sales operations before I went off and did this. So a bit to John's point, I hate looking through slide decks. It just really pisses me off. I'm just like, just tell me what you guys can do. I'm very familiar with your industry. These are the 6 companies that I've sat through before. These are the 4 features that I care if you can do and how well you can do them. Focus on those. Good salespeople listen. Bad salespeople will be like, oh yeah, but we're better than options 1 and 3, and in last year we changed our color from green to blue, and I'm like, I don't care. I just care about these 3 things because I'm very familiar with the 90 different other email marketing solutions there are on the market. I don't know. I think I'm a pretty horrid buyer, but I'm very honest.
No, but I think that's very, very interesting, because you obviously, and I think, yeah. So in my perspective, and this is going to take on to another debate, and I really don't want to go back there, but I think obviously there's a thing of where, you know, listen to the customer and address what the points that the customer actually wants. But I think there is some point, and I think as salespeople, we do need to recognize that sometimes the customer doesn't really understand their own problem, and it doesn't really know what they maybe need, or what they, you know, what the actual problems are. They're just dealing with the symptoms. And I think there's obviously about trying to, you know, have that perfect balance there, you know, something. But I do thank you. I really appreciate your response there, you know, so really do kind of forget your tailor-made, your presentation of from this is point A and this point B, you know, okay, guys, what do you want to hear about? This is what I do. What do you want to hear about? What do you want me to focus on? Yeah, and I think that's really great. Thank you very much, guys, for your time today. It was really, really great listening to you guys, and really, really great conversation. We're going to have a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll be back in 10 minutes for the next panel. Thank you guys for your time.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.